Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we are out here in a deserted desert highway test driving the 2021 Mercedes AMG E63S, the fast one. Yeah, so we're going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a real test drive and I'm going to tell you what I really think. You've seen that big tattooed muscle guy, the one with flaring nostrils and an attitude? You've seen him on TV probably because he owns the gym in your local town. He's the guy that refuses to close his gym because of COVID-19. He doesn't think he needs to because he's fighting for his freedom to be a dumbass. And yours too. If that guy were a car, this would be the car. This is the brawniest, most muscular, bad attitude Mercedes E-Class you can get. It's also the most expensive one because this one has all the shit on it, just under $136,000. And that's because starting out at 107, this also has close to 30 grand worth of options. And let's talk about what we've got. They've redesigned the front for 2021, new headlights, new grille work, new front fascia. I think it's very handsome, it's muscular, it's brawny, it's got the attitude. And it's also got a lot of options. It's got the black trim package, which gives you some accents down on the lower fascia that are gloss black. That also extends to the side windows and a number of other key locations around the car. This also has the carbon fiber package on the exterior, which again, goes to the lower fascia, along the rockers down the side of the car and on the mirror caps. Wheels on this, optional as well. Black AMG wheels, 20 inches. I think they're pretty handsome, probably the best looking wheels you can get on this car. And if you look closely in the center, you're gonna see some awesome brakes. Look at that. Don't those look great? They match my shoes, in fact. Carbon ceramic brakes. They better work darn good because they're expensive. 9 grand worth of brakes. Can you imagine? If Smart still sold for twos here in the United States, you could almost buy a new one for what these brakes cost. Yeah, just a little added detail for interest. Just like the big tattooed muscle guy, this thing's got a pretty sexy butt. I mean, look at this. It's muscular, it's sporty, it's athletic, and with the new redesigned taillights for 2021, the avant-garde slimmer look does give this a little bit more muscular proportion back there, and the detailing, exquisite. On the deck lid, a very nicely done carbon fiber spoiler. Down in the lower fascia, also a little bit of carbon fiber and that gloss black plastic that comes with the other package. And note the quad dual exhaust finishers. Now I call them finishers because they're not technically exhaust tips. If you look very closely, you'll see they're just trim pieces hanging in the lower fascia, not actually connected to the exhaust pipes at all. It's sort of a half measure, right? They're not true exhaust tips, but they're not complete fakes like some of the brands out there offer, even Mercedes in the 450 model. So I give Mercedes a little bit of a snap or two for at least a half measure. If you know me, you know one thing I really truly love in life is black leather. I mean, just look at this cabin. And this is a car that I've been in before, and I can tell you that I absolutely love the design of this interior. One of the best in the business without question in terms of design, quality materials. This has every known option practically. The carbon fiber interior package, the Napa leather interior with the yellow stitching, and the suede seats and steering wheel really go well with the character of this car. And the backdrop of which is switchgear quality that's just probably the best you can get at any price, and a level of comfort in these sports seats that's just amazing. I mean, look at these seats. They are every bit as supportive and gripping in your body as they look. And as I sit here and look forward, the big piece of glass that I've talked about in other Mercedes-Benz, not my favorite design, but it works. There is a lot of information presented there. And in this car, it does have a big shroud, which does prevent it from getting sun glare in almost all circumstances. Although from the side and different angles, you do still get some glare. It is more visible here than in almost any other Mercedes-Benz model. I do like the layout. It has a big instrument cluster in the center, your infotainment on the right, and you can customize that in a multitude of ways. This steering wheel, all of these controls are touch sensitive. On the left, you have your thumb controls that you can use for the information cluster in front of you. On your right, you have the touch controls for the infotainment system. This is an AMG steering wheel that has paddle shifters on it. These are real metal shifters. They have a nice feel to them. They feel like quality. And then you do have thumb controls down below, the regular controls to use for drive mode and all of the settings that refer to your driving. The center stack and center console, very artfully designed, and with the carbon fiber, just looks absolutely beautiful. An AMG logo right in the center. This does open up and gives you cup holders and a slot down inside to put your phone. Now, not all phones are going to fit in there, but you can slip a phone all the way in there, and there is a wireless charger along with the connectivity ports that you'd expect here. It's just very nice looking. It's very clean. There are hard controls across the top for the more used functions of the HVAC and to get to the main menu of the infotainment center, and buttons down below. Also down here you have a touchpad that you can use for that main infotainment screen, and a few other buttons and roll screws to use for things like volume and some of the other controls. In the modern landscape, it's so rare to sit in the back seat of a sedan anymore. Almost everything I drive these days is an SUV. And I'm talking about SUV things when it comes to the rear seat passenger area. And what I can tell you about this sedan is that it feels roomy. The roof is a little bit lower, but it's not an SUV. I am sitting lower, not an SUV. Plenty of legroom, as you can see, though. These seats are set for my height, about 5'8" with my tennis shoes, and I've got plenty of legroom, as you can see. I do have air vents expected in this price range, and I don't have power ports back here, but I do have an ashtray and a place to put a cigarette lighter if I so chose. These seats do fold down in a 60-40 split to allow long items from the trunk, which is pretty sizable. You can see that right there. Underneath that is not going to be a spare tire. Instead, you're going to find some components for things like the air suspension and other things that go with this car. You're going to get a fix-a-flat kit for this car, not a spare. The big picture of this interior is that I absolutely love this design. It looks elegant. I think it's true to classic Mercedes-Benz DNA. If you go back to Benzes of the 60s and 70s, you're going to see a lot of design similarity here, things that have carried through. And while I didn't talk about all of the different features and options that are here and demonstrate all the systems, that's not really my job here. I'm not a brochure, so to speak. You can get that information online, all the features list. What I am here to do is sit here and feel this and use this and tell you what this is really like to live with. And this is a winner in my opinion. This interior gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is one that's gotten a lot of controversy with different journalists depending on, frankly, what our tastes are. And typically I do not like highly over-complex systems that don't have traditional knobs, tuning and volume on each side like an old-fashioned radio. I like basic controls, and then you can give me all the extra crap. But if you're going to build my life around tons of pages and menus, make it easy, make the graphics good, and that's what they've done here. There are a number of ways to control everything. There are thumb controls here on the steering wheel that you can control the infotainment system with. There are hard controls here, and there are controls down here. There are 3 ways to do a number of different things. And the way the menus are laid out, it works. There's a home screen that allows you to pick the topic that you're looking for, and that dives also into car settings, but relative to navigation, radio, and other forms of media connecting your phone, this works exceptionally well. And with the Burmester sound system, it sounds exceptionally well, even on satellite radio. Connect your phone to it, and it's really one of the best in the business. The bottom line is I've really come to like this system in spite of all of its complexity. It has the connectivity, it has the feature content, it has the audio quality, and for the most part it has decent hard controls. There is a thumb screw down here for volume, although I prefer a knob. It's got at least that. So this infotainment system gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. Before we get out on the test drive, we're going to talk about what's under the hood here, because this defines this car more than almost anything else. And this is a 4-liter twin turbocharged hand-built V8 from AMG, built in a special factory. And this engine's actually something you find in quite a few different AMG models and different variations. Here we have 603 horsepower and 627 pound-feet of torque. And that, my friends, is a lot of power. Getting that power to the ground is a 9-speed AMG-tuned automatic transmission, and that goes to all 4 wheels through a 4-matic all-wheel drive system. And the all-wheel drive system, of course, can send all of that power to the rear wheels, and it can split it out. It's got a number of different modes for race and track, as well as, you know, for that winter stuff. But it's really about getting this power to the ground. So the question is, how does it go? Let me get to a complete stop here. Nobody around. And here we go. Woo! Oh my God, and 60. And 100. Whoa, okay. And those carbon ceramic brakes working really well to bring this down to a realistic speed before I hit this corner. So yeah, Mercedes-Benz says 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds, and yes, yep, that's right. I don't question it one bit. Woo-wee. Listen to that. Ah, ha, ha, ha. This sounds beautiful. So this works really well. It sounds awesome. That sound, of course, adjustable because this exhaust system adjusts depending on the drive modes. You can adjust it manually, make it loud, even when you're driving around in mild mode, but it just automatically goes there when you dial it up to race, which is what I'm in right now. This is an awesome engine. I've test driven it in some other cars this year. I absolutely love it. It is thirsty. That goes without saying. The EPA says 16 MPG city, 23 highway, and 18 combined. I got 15 combined this week, so it's thirsty, but I also drive it. Yes. Auto start-stop sucks. It absolutely sucks. And with this engine, in spite of its active motor mounts, which are there to sort of stop it from sucking as much, it sucks. Luckily, yes, you can turn it off, but it defaults to on every time you start the car. And the other thing I don't really like so much about this sort of realm is the fact that cattle guard, the modes also default to comfort every time you start the car. My opinion is that if you're going to spend 135 grand, you should deserve to have the damn thing stay where you put it last time you drove it. Little disappointed with some of the electronic nannies that still exist, and it's just part of our world. But this is an engine that very powerful. It can be refined at times, but it also has some rough edges. So powertrain comes in at 4.5 out of 5 stars. I got to be honest with you, I really wish I had a racetrack to fully ring this out on, because these drive modes, all this power in this chassis has so much potential that you just cannot spend on a public road. That's just the reality of it. That is the reality of it here. But here we are. So what we're really going to sort of talk about here is what it's like to live with. And so most cars that had drive modes, again, starting out at comfort, going all the way to race, they give you this comfort, cushy ride on the base level, and they go all the way up to wild, mild to wild. But this car starts at wild and goes to absolute bonkers. And that means that the baseline ride, even on its softest setting, is hard. It's rock hard, and it gets harder from there. This has a 3-chamber air suspension, AMG version of the air body control, which means it can counteract a lot of body movements based on a lot of sensors that determine what's happening with the road surface and what you're doing, how you're driving, fast, slow, turning, not turning. And it can keep this thing as stable as it can possibly be. But again, I'm just pointing out that we're starting out at a very stiff level, and it can vary the stiffness of both the dampers and the springs. How does it work? It works pretty well. It works pretty well, especially out here on an open road. I'm going at speed here, and I'm throwing this thing into a corner. Very little, if any, body roll, and it's tight as it can be for a big sedan. This feels like a race car in a lot of ways, only it's relatively quiet. And I say relatively because this is a noisy piece of road that I drive on deliberately to test road noise. This car has a lot of road noise. Cattle guard. And that's in part because of these big tires and wheels, a lot of rubber, a lot of noise, especially on noisy pavement. But it does transmit into this cabin a lot, even though this does have the acoustic package. That handles the wind noise, but road noise still. The only real complaint I have about this chassis is that this air body control suspension, because it tries to compensate and eliminate the effects of things like speed bumps and potholes, it sometimes gets a bit of an artificial feel. And so I think they could sort of sharpen that up a little bit. So chassis gets 4 out of 5 stars. The last thing I like to talk about is value. And let's be honest, on a muscle car, luxury car, kind of an exotic thing like this, it's kind of hard to put a value score on it because we're not comparing Honda Civics and Toyota Corollas, but I'm going to give it a shot. So the thing I look at whenever I have a car is price, options price, quality, basically what it's like to live with, and are you getting your money's worth? And so when I look at these metrics on this car, the big thing that sticks out to me is option pricing. We saw a lot of those things floating across the screen as we talked about them. Options pricing, carbon fiber, black plastic trim, brakes, interior bits and pieces. This car is sticking it to you when it comes to optioning it up. Now, yes, if you can afford it, you're in the Mercedes showroom, you don't give a damn, but I'm trying to score this with some level of objectivity. Base price 107, it's what you, I mean, it does have a lot for that money, but there's options pricing. Wow. The other thing is quality. I did notice a lot of little things like noises and creaks and rattles on the interior. Some of it caused by the fact that we've got a rough, gnarly engine, we've got a stiff suspension. This thing's basically a race car. Even Mercedes has a hard time keeping the interior trim quiet in something like this, but nonetheless, that shows up here on our score, which for value, I put it 3.5 stars. And so when you put that in with all the other metrics we've already discussed in the review, we have a total review score of 4 out of 5 stars. So there you go. Still scores very highly, as it should. It's a $100,000 plus Mercedes-Benz. It's kind of like that muscle guy with the tattoos, right? He's really good to look at. He's fun. He's a bit of a rough ride though when you go to live with him. And he's expensive because he won't shut his damn gym, and he's got a lot of lawyer bills, even in a pandemic. So there you go. You scratch your head, but you go, damn, I love to drive that thing. Anyway, if you like the video you just saw, click right there, see my latest one, or better yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.